Places, everyone. Here we go. All right, is everybody ready?
Yep.
Great. Good evening, everyone. I'm Deb McMillan. I'm playing the part of the mayor this evening. Welcome to the City Council Workshop meeting for Monday, September 14th. We have 2 items on the agenda. The first one is the Arboretum Area Transportation Plan update, and I'm going to send this over to Kara.
Great. Acting Mayor and council members, it's nice to be here in person. Angie Bursaw from Bolton and Mink is going to be doing our presentation tonight, so I'm going to hand things over to her.
Thanks for having me.
Can you give us your name?
Yes.
For the record, please.
I am Angie Bursaw with Bolton and Mink. We are the consulting engineering firm. I think I was here, gosh, it was probably March of 2020, last time we were talking about this project. So excited to be here again tonight.
Welcome back.
Thank you. So I am going to give an update and just a quick step backwards before we move into new updates. But the Arboretum Area Transportation Plan has been going on for about 1.5 years, almost 2 years now, where we're studying 4 or 5 different corridors, Rolling Acres Road, Highway 5, Highway 41, and 82nd Street, which are shown in the orange on your screen, with the goal of identifying what's the future vision for these roadways. We know we have some issues out there today. What do we need to do to improve them so they are safe, they work for all users, they're respectful of the environment, and they are financially responsible, something that can actually be implemented. I think last time I was here, we were talking about a little bit about Rolling Acres Road, but mostly about Highway 5 East, so the section from Rolling Acres Road over to 41. And tonight I'm here to talk a little bit, give you some more information about Rolling Acres Road and Highway 5 West, so the part from Rolling Acres Road all the way through downtown Victoria here to County Road 11. We have been doing a lot of engagement. This study's been going on for a while, as I mentioned, and our process working through things is to identify what are the needs from a technical standpoint, get public input on that to confirm, are we seeing this right? What else from your experience of living there, driving through there, being a business in these areas? What can you tell us? And then coming up with improvement ideas, and then again sharing those with the public before we get to recommendations. We're kind of in this phase where we're getting close to recommendations, but we're not there yet. And I want to share a lot of the input that we've gotten so far. On the screen, you'll see many different activities we've done for the Highway 5 West segment. We've had a meeting with downtown business owners where we invited them. We really only got a couple to that meeting, so we then went to the Victoria Business Association meeting to try to come to them, and we did have a little bit of a bigger audience there. And then a number of public open houses where we've been inviting businesses and residents and commuters and everyone who has an interest in this area through our open houses. And you see those were in July and December, and also July of this year. So I'm going to first cover really quickly some of the needs on Highway 5 West. We've been looking closely at what does this corridor need to be? Can we improve intersections and keep it a 2-lane highway like it is today? Or do we need to expand it and go to 4 lanes? And there have been a lot of studies on this corridor in the past, and I know some of those previous studies concluded a 4-lane was needed. We took a hard look at that to see, is it really needed? That's a big investment. And again, what we were coming up with our technical analysis is looking at not only what's happening today, but how will that change in 20 years from now as this area grows? Everyone has just updated your comprehensive plans. The county has done the same. What's the growth projections? And the conclusion was that this area does need to be a 4-lane. So, last time I was here, we were talking about 4 lanes from 41 to Rolling Acres Road. We've now confirmed that we do need 4 lanes from Rolling Acres Road through County Road 11 here on the west. And what the map with the red circles and the red red on the screen is showing you is that what happens if we didn't do that? You know, could we get away with doing some other littler improvements? And we are just seeing that all of the intersections are failing, and the backups in between the intersections, it's extending between those as well, and it really just kind of becomes gridlock. So traffic access in and out of downtown would be very difficult. So not only flow on the highway, but how you get in and off the highway. We also looked at, just the main intersections themselves, the one here in downtown Victoria at County Road 11 and Rolling Acres Road. And, you could project a shift in crashes if we didn't do anything, of having some major crash issues now moving to the west and into this area if we didn't do anything. So what we have looked at then is, we start taking a closer look at, well, what would that 4-lane look like? Where do we need turn lanes? And how would that help? And this slide is just showing about the delay. You could expect to see a delay reduction of about 52, so about half, 52% if we do this. And really looking at all the way, like I mentioned, from Rolling Acres Road through County Road 11 on the west. So what I'm showing here is I want to dive into a little bit more detail through this downtown area, because I know some of the previous studies had identified how would you build this 4-lane and would it require a lot of acquisitions, and we took a hard look at that. The picture on the slide is showing what that looks like today, what you'd see is driving through today, and what that looks like from what we call a typical section. So that's the bottom graphic of, 1 lane in each direction. There are turn lanes at the intersections, and there's a sidewalk on one side, and there's some landscaping, before you have the parking. So kind of mirroring the image, just in a different kind of graphic drawing. And then looking at, well, what could that look like if we expanded it to 4 lanes? And really, this, of course, this looks nice and pretty, but the main takeaway here at the base level is that there is space here to accommodate a 4-lane. We're not showing that house that's on the left side of the screen, maybe I can flip back, is still there. So you can see, maybe I can point.
I'll point.
Thank you. That house and that fence.
Pointer.
Yeah, that house and that fence is still in our next graphic here. So we're not purchasing a row of houses to make this happen. The parking lot on the right-hand side of your screen is still there. It's really just using the space differently. So I'll start on the right side of the screen where the parking lot is. We are showing a sidewalk. So we sort of just flipped the sidewalk and the landscaped area to provide a buffer between that moving traffic and people on the sidewalks. And then we have our 2 lanes heading west and a left turn lane. We looked at, do we need right turn lanes? Do we need, that just takes more space, but sometimes you need them for operations to make these intersections work. And at this location, we aren't needing that. Going the other way then, coming towards us, that would be heading east, we have the 2 lanes of traffic and then a buffer area and the sidewalk area. So, and in the middle, thanks Kara, I skipped over that, the median. So we're showing, when you have an area where we have 2 lanes of traffic and the volume of traffic that's moving through this area, you do want to see a median for separation of movements. It's a safety feature. This median is wide enough to accommodate landscaping should you choose. It does not need to look like this. I know there's pros and cons on all of that. You don't want it to be too high to restrict any site. You want to make it sure it's something that you can maintain, is very weather resistant, salt wise. This is just an example to say you could do that if you chose. But really, again, just the main takeaway is a different use of the space that's out there, but accommodating the 4 lanes through.
So you won't have to acquire any homes in order to do this?
So none of the homes. I will talk about the right turn lane heading east. We have 2 different options for that. I have a slide about that, but no, the homes we're showing, we can fit it within the right-of-way that's there today.
Okay.
So it looks like, if I look at that picture, Churchill's is gone. the cigar shop.
Yes, so that's what I'm going to talk about. We showed sort of the biggest footprint in this visualization. We have an option where we don't need that turn lane, and it's the right turn lane. It's there today. So we looked pretty hard at because that's a big movement from east to south on County Road 11. The turn lane and the space that we would be able to fit in here really doesn't buy you much room, maybe a couple cars of like a pocket turn lane. Operationally, it's not needed for keeping a good traffic flow. Adding it would certainly add a little bit more benefit, but at the cost of a property acquisition. So we show both, but we don't feel like it is needed. And I'll just jump to the chase. When we did talk to that property owner, just to understand, sometimes you have property owners that don't have a long-term vision for staying somewhere, or they would be a willing seller. That is not the case. That property owner is interested in staying. It's a good business for the community. So we felt like we did our due diligence of saying this could be an option, but he's not interested in selling. There's not a major operational benefit. We think it's something that can be dismissed as an idea.
So the holiday station would still be there too?
Right. Yep. No impact to the holiday.
Okay.
We'll talk about access to that area here in a bit, though. Any other questions? Okay.
Council?
Well, wait, I'm kind of worried about the speed.
I do have a lot more information here about downtown, so certainly jump in. What's on the screen now is just showing how what we call, again, the typical section, how it changes where we have turn lanes. It does get a little bit wider, but you did see that I showed the turn lane option. So we can jump back and forth to this one. There's not a lot to say. We did ask for public input on, what do you think about this 4-lane idea? Again, we do feel like it's not necessarily it is needed from an operations and safety, for flow and good access in and out of downtown. It is needed, but we're curious what people think about the idea of a 4-lane. And you can read some of the things on the screen here, but a lot of positive comments. I think some of the negative comments were interesting because they're sort of a positive about just how long are we going to have to wait for this, because they can see the benefit today. There was a comment about private property impacts, and I think it was, related to that one, and I'll show you here in a bit, where we had that option of adding the right turn lane, but it did have a property impact. So I think that was related to that. So we can come back and forth to these as we look at some of the other ideas.
How many property owners did you speak with? There's not only Churchill's, but as you go east, I think there's 3 homes along there. It would be pretty tight there for those homeowners. Mm-hmm. Did you speak with them? I don't.
We did not reach out directly to them beyond. They were invited to all of our public meetings and our online input I should mention, during COVID, we've been doing everything online.
Okay.
So sending out postcards where they can review the materials and answer survey questions about what could you support, what concerns do you have. So that is how we did that. And again, the improvements are shown within the right-of-way. So it isn't on their property. It would be a change for them coming closer to their their property lines, but
Sure.
it wouldn't require acquisition.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to shift us a little bit east of downtown and then come back through downtown with just some different intersection options we have. So now we're looking at Park, Drive, and Cochia. And then just right there is 78th Street and I apologize, Steiger Lake. Am I saying that right? Steiger.
I vote for Steiger.
Okay.
It's up for grabs.
It's up for grabs. Okay, thank you. So we have we kind of looked at these intersections together, knowing that one of them could benefit from a traffic signal from an operations standpoint, just looking at the neighborhood network and how the local roads connect in here. And there is a demand for people wanting to walk across the highway in these areas to get to the trail and into downtown and such. So we looked at 2 different pairings here of these intersections. The first one you're seeing is a signal at Park and Cochia, and Steiger and 78th Street would become right in, right out. So there would be a median on Highway 5, through those two intersections. And so if you were on 78th and you wanted to come into downtown, you would actually go right and do a U-turn at Park and come back into downtown. Or find a different way in on the local network, to the west.
Are you turning at the intersection?
At Park Drive and at the signal, so it'd be a signalized intersection.
Then they would U-turn and then come back and get onto Steiger Lake.
Correct. Yep.
Or they could just go up to Bavaria as well and
Right.
then make a left-hand turn.
Yeah, I would anticipate that a lot of people in this area who would be aware of that only being a right in, right out would just come up Cochia to hit the signal to take
Right.
the left to get
Yeah.
into downtown.
And if you're coming from the west, you'd probably hop off at the other signal downtown.
Right.
Yep.
But you could still, it would be a right in, so you still could turn in
So
from the right.
So is Steiger Lake still two-way?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
At that point, yeah.
But you wouldn't be able to, you wouldn't be able to take a left. Correct.
Because you'd have to put in two signals if you did the signals
Yeah.
down here or
Right.
a roundabout or something.
Right, and we look really closely at intersection spacing and operations, and the more signals you add, you slow down your operations, and signals actually add crashes to corridors, so you want to be really careful where you put them and make sure they meet warrants, and it is the right solution.
I think if you're gonna do a median, you have to have a turn lane for them to turn around instead of having to go down into an intersection to U-turn. And the other way as well. There's not enough room to do a median with a turn in it.
So you're saying like a U-turn movement within the median itself? It would make the road wider. You would have to have that, it would probably be wider than the median that's shown. But the U-turns, if you design your signal knowing that U-turns are going to happen there, they are an allowed safe movement at a signalized intersection. Not everywhere. Sometimes you see the no U-turn sign. That's based on the geometry. But knowing that we would want to allow that here, you can design it as such.
So you don't think that that intersection at Park and 5 would be dangerous to have a U-turn there?
It would be a signalized movement, so they would have a green arrow to make that move, or a green light while everyone else is stopped. So it wouldn't be like today where it's free flow and you have to try to find a gap to make that movement. It would be a safe, authorized, movement at a controlled signal.
So a question on the pedestrian crossing, is that, does that go at grade or is it an underneath crossing?
It could be either. Because we're at a planning level yet, we haven't, that's something that could be figured out in preliminary design. It could be either, and it would just be a cost difference and would we want that to look and how would it fit? We just know that there's a demand there for people that want to cross. They would be able to cross at Park at the signalized intersection, but we're also seeing, because of how close the trail is in this area, that they really want to get there. So we're just saying there should be something there, either at grade, with something in the median to get them across in two phases, or it could be an underpass or overpass.
Like the pedestrian light?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we haven't figured out those details yet.
So they can only cross either at 78th or Cochia?
Correct. I mean, that's where we would encourage them to cross.
Okay.
So I'm going to flip over to the second pairing option. So this is sort of the or, it could be the first one I showed you or this, where you can see the signal moves to a realigned intersection of 78th and Steiger Lake, where it's not offset like it is today. We would bring that together, so it'd be a traditional four-legged intersection. However, it would require acquisition of a property in that northeast quadrant there. So that there is a trade-off with the signal being there. At Park and Cochia, then you would have what we call a side street stop. So just the side streets, not Highway 5, but the side street stop and wait for a gap and get on and off the highway.
What's the sense of how many cars drop off at that park in Cochia? You know what I mean?
Oh, from traveling on Highway
Right,
5?
right.
I don't know if I have my volumes in front of me. I still think we're in the mid 20,000s, kind of all the way through downtown, and then west of downtown it starts to drop.
Okay. And you don't have a preference, or did the residents and the folks that you talked to, did they have a preference on these two
Yeah.
concepts?
Thank you for asking that question, because I kind of blurred over this. You'll see I'm back to our first concept here with all our evaluation scoring. So the goals that we had set out for what we're trying to achieve with operations and safety and working for all users, we are showing that this option works better. It does meet most of our goals, and it seems to fit the network better by having the signal at Park and Cochia. We rated this option a little bit lower because it did have an acquisition of property, and it seems like there's a little bit more demand for a controlled intersection at Park and Cochia.
Where's the acquisition of the property?
It's
It'd be the
the
car
car
dealer.
dealership.
That's a big acquisition.
Yeah.
It's a-
The whole thing?
That's a bad business to lose in terms of that spot. So that doesn't sound like a good idea to me.
Yeah, definitely a major trade-off with that option.
And if I could just touch on that, the intersection at Park and Cochia and Highway 5, that's going to be a major intersection with the decision by the school district to sell that land. We've got a lot more houses coming in that whole area, so that is going to be an important intersection.
Sure.
So that should be signalized.
Good point.
So we did ask that question to the public as well about, okay, we have these two different pairings of intersection ideas. What do you think? Showed them how we had evaluated it, but asked, for their input. And the pie chart, that's a lot of words on there, but it's showing that of the people who responded to our surveys that we had out there just recently, about 73% of them were choosing the signal at Park and Cochia and the right-in, right-outs at 78th and Steiger Lake. So it was in line with kind of how the project team was thinking about it, and kind of what I'm hearing, some of the pros and cons you guys are understanding as well. So I'm going to keep moving. Now we're moving west, so we're heading closer into downtown. This is showing some of the downtown access and local road network enhancements we've been talking about as a project team. Assuming, again, a 4-lane on Highway 5 with a median on Highway 5 except at 80th Street and at County Road 11, the main intersection in downtown. Yep.
There would not be a median?
So the median is shown in green and white. So the median would run, yep, Kara's pointing it out there.
So they're gonna have to get across 8 lanes without a median?
So the pedestrian crossings they could handle at County Road 11 at the signalized intersection. Again, there could be a median crossing at Quamaclit. There's a median shown through that intersection where, again, you could have a 2-phase crossing for pedestrians. But it is showing some of the network improvements that I think had started some discussions in the downtown planning through your downtown master plan, and kind of brought that into this process of showing an extension of, I guess it might be 80th Street?
Tower Boulevard?
Tower Boulevard, okay. To connect over into Highway 5 and make a main intersection there, lining it up with 80th Street. And our work so far has shown that it does not need to be a signalized intersection, that could be what's called a side street stop, so you wait for your gap and make your movement. And then commercial would become a cul-de-sac, so again, encouraging and limiting how access gets handled on Highway 5 through this area. The green and the white is just showing of the medians, is just showing where you have a little bit more space. If you wanted to add like some landscaping, gateway, kind of help slow people down, you're arriving somewhere into downtown, there would be space in some of those wider areas to make that happen.
Is that atypical to allow left-hand turns across 2 lanes of traffic like that? That seems, I'm trying to think of where that happens without a traffic light.
No, we look at how much volume is on the side streets and how much of that will be conflicting. Like, what are the movements and how many people want to take a left versus a right or through? And so we do look closely at that to see if it meets what we call warrants for a signal or something else. We did look at, would a roundabout help for traffic calming, or what other, we did go through the full range of ideas here, but they weren't really needed from an operations or safety standpoint, but they add, a lot of cost, like with that roundabout idea. But no, a signal at least, and we're looking out to 2040.
Right.
So there just aren't enough.
I was just trying to think, okay,
Yeah.
where can I take a left-hand turn across 2 lanes of traffic? And I can't think of any, just off the top of my head. Canadian? I'm thinking,
I could think of it, I've seen them in different cities.
okay, I mean, it just looks odd to me. It just seems like, wow.
I've seen it, but there was a median, and then there was a space. So you could
Right,
sit
like on
there,
212,
sit
on major
Sure.
roads where you can park in the middle.
Yeah.
That would be the change, that would be an enhancement where.
But I don't think you
go
can-
Median wider.
So if somebody's if someone is eastbound and they want to take a left on Quamoplet, they are stopped in traffic and all the traffic is stopped behind them until there's a gap that they can.
Well, in this case, they wouldn't be able to turn left on Quamog.
Because there's a
No,
median
up to the
there.
next
Right.
one though.
Yeah.
80th,
Yeah.
yep.
80th.
On
Yep.
80th, yeah, if you want to take a left.
Yeah, they would wait on the side street 80th in that case. Wait
No,
until,
But if they're headed east on Highway 5,
sure,
They're
then,
trying to get across.
taking a left.
Hopefully, the traffic light up that park is slowing it down so they can get across. Otherwise, it's gonna have to be the same problem, I would think.
So there's no left turn lane there. So anyone taking left would stop traffic.
No, there's a left turn.
Is there a left turn?
Right here, yeah. So they would be sitting in their dedicated left turn lane,
Sure.
waiting for a gap to cross over the other 2 lanes of traffic.
Okay, that makes sense to me. I was under the impression they were stopping all the time.
oh, sorry, I thought you meant the side street.
Okay, thank you.
I think we talked about both kind of at the same time.
Yeah.
Because you are correct that the, person, if they wanted to get all the way across to Tower, they would have to cross 4 lanes.
Which is actually pretty typical when you see, that is the problem sometimes on these rural highways that are 2 lanes and they have space to sit in the middle. People don't. They try to kind of shoot it all at once, and it is, extra wide because of the median plus the 4 lanes. This would be, one movement. You wait and you make your gap and you go. All right, I'm going to keep moving. So now we are looking at the County Road 11, Highway 5 intersection, and this is what I was talking about before, where we had 2 options, one that has a right turn lane and one that does not for eastbound. So if you're traveling east on Highway 5 and you want to go south on Highway 11, today there is a right turn lane there. We looked closely, and when you add lanes, you naturally spread out the traffic a little bit more. But we looked closely at, do we need a dedicated right turn lane? So you could see that would bump out. I'm going to flip to the next graphic, and you're going to see I'm going to flip back and forth a little bit, how that bumps out and would require a full property acquisition. Without further acquiring properties, to the west, you don't get a lot of space of that turn lane. You just space for a couple vehicles. So the operational benefit is pretty low. And again, knowing that that business is wanting to stay and has plans to be successful here and for a long time, our team did not evaluate that as something that is needed to happen. And it would just, this can work just fine.
So that scenario is the same as the one for Churchill's? Or,
This is Churchill's.
This is the one with church.
oh, it is the
Yeah.
one for Church, I was just thinking.
Yeah, she flipped back.
Okay, sorry.
Isn't there a huge number of cars that come down,
Sorry.
they come from the west and take a right turn on Victoria Drive? I mean, every day I'm in there, it's a huge number.
This will be different than today, though, because there are 2 lanes
Right.
heading west. So you're not all, waiting in that one lane or in that one lane going by. You'll have 2 lanes to get by that. And there will still be a little bit more delay without the right turn lane. But again, the offsetting are, in a perfect world, if we could build this and there were no impacts, we would build the right turn lane. But recognizing, we can't build to perfection just with cost and impacts. This will work very successfully and within the adequate range of traffic operations during the peak hours of the day.
With the 11 merging into it, 11 is really backing up a lot to get onto 5 because the right turn lane is the straight across lane as well. So it looks like it's still going to be that way.
Are you talking about, I'm sorry, just so I,
11?
yes, 11.
Top-
Yep.
Top side 5,
I have a slide here on some improvements we have suggested for that as well.
okay. Because on my way here, I sat through 2 traffic lights, and I was about 2 blocks back.
Yeah. Yep, I'll show that here in a second. Maybe I'll flip right to it and come back. Here we go. So one idea we had for what we call an interim improvement, a very low cost, something that could happen relatively soon with the county and the city, partnership here is that, and the state, is that if we just do some restriping, and that would require some traffic signal modifications, and it really can operate a lot better than it is today. So what that is showing is it's showing a dedicated left turn lane and then a shared lane that's a through and a right. Versus today, the left and the through are shared and the right has its own turn lane. So it's really some paint and some traffic signal retiming that could make that operate a lot better.
Okay, I like that.
Is that a recommendation that you're putting in? Or,
Yep, just a very short-term improvement. So our study will end with an implementation plan saying here are, and it'll range from little things like that, like striping and signal retiming to major reconstruction, expansion. And it will identify what should happen first, what the cost is, who the responsible agencies should be, just to kind of give a direction plan for next steps. I'm going to focus back here. So interestingly, when we asked the public about this right turn lane or not at the intersection of County Road 11 and Highway 5, they, similarly to the questions tonight, were thinking we have to have that. Of course, there's a lot of people making that movement today. So public input was supporting that right turn lane being there. But again, I think the study, if I had to make a recommendation to you today, I would recommend you don't need that. I mean, it would be a wonderful to have, but the cost of buying and taking and relocating a business isn't worth it from a project recommendation standpoint. Talked about that. So moving to the west in downtown, we have a couple different ideas for the Holiday gas station area. This first one, and the whole context of this is the median again. We have a median on Highway 5 for safety and for traffic flow. And that's shown in the gray and then the blue. And this option has a median really through, so if you're heading west on Highway 5 and you want to get to Holiday, you would have to turn at the signal before and kind of come back around. And we're showing here a reconnection of Rose Street to make that happen. So that would be one way to get in. Now, Rose Street doesn't connect today. I don't know the history. Obviously, there's history with that. For some reason, there always is, right, in how things happen. So that would be, kind of reversing something that isn't there today just for that movement. The other idea would be to add in a kind of like a pocket left turn lane where, again, if you're heading west on Highway 5 and you want to get to Holiday, you can take that left turn lane and make your movement on, either a U-turn or get back into any of those businesses with their driveways on Highway 5 there without having to reconnect Rose Street. So 2 different ways to make that area work.
Either way, the Holiday Station is not quite as accessible.
Yeah, it's pretty close to the intersection itself, and just, you can see the left turn lane that we have on Highway 5 for eastbound traffic extends, past Holiday and over to Rose Street, and you don't want to have driveways, conflicting with turning movements in a turn lane and people waiting in turn lanes. That's where you have crash issues.
I think the option where you have to go around the block, that'll kill the business.
Yeah, I like that.
I'm not going around the block.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like this one. I like that for further down too.
Yeah, is this the right time to talk about 80th Street?
Sure. Yeah.
Because that's, you've got the driveway to the Holiday gas station and then 80th Street that comes right off. And it would seem like there would be an opportunity to do some kind of I don't know if it's a service road or that could get to all of that. Is the intention to keep the 80th Street
Access point.
access open?
The driveways will connect to Highway 5, the 80th Street and the Holiday access, those are shown with both of these options. It's really just how do you get back around to those businesses? So that the 80th Street is shown to connect and still connect to Highway 5 with both of these options. A frontage road would probably require some acquisition. There's a property there, I don't know the name of it. Kara? Yeah, it probably would require, by the time you get it in and you'd be right up to the building, you'd probably have to acquire that property to make that happen. Versus, again, a safe movement U-turn to Holiday is what we're showing here with this option.
Seems like a pretty good option to me. I kind of
I
like it.
like that one. I like the safe U-turn. Why can't we do that further east instead of doing that U-turn at the right?
Yeah, you probably could. I think what we were looking at from a network standpoint is how many would actually do that though versus use a local road, backage road over to Cochia or find a different way into downtown. We weren't seeing that as a need, but it's something that I'll certainly make note of.
Because then we're redirecting traffic through the neighborhoods and they're not going to do that. I think something like this so that they can get around would be better.
Okay. So we did ask the public about these 2 different options, again, with the Rose Street or the U-turn. And so what you're seeing here is that concept 1, new connection to Rose Street, so reestablishing Rose Street, or that pocket U-turn. It was pretty mixed on the input, pretty even. Some people said they weren't decided. To me, it's really about the businesses there and, working with them when it gets closer to a construction project of what do you prefer and what works best for your business. I think either of them can get the public in and out pretty acceptably.
I'm surprised. I thought it would be much more heavy on concept 2.
Yeah. So now I'm just going to keep us moving here. I know we have about 10 minutes. So Highway 5 west of downtown. So you've noticed on the other graphics I've shown you lanes and turn lanes and very detailed information. As we've been moving west, it's getting a little bit higher level. And I'm sure you can appreciate just with the change that's expected out here, there's a lot of uncertainty of what exactly that might be and what kind of traffic that would generate. And so what we have shown and what was shown publicly was that we know we need 4 lanes on Highway 5 out to the Highway 11 north intersection. We know that that Highway 11 intersection with 5 needs some sort of traffic control, either a signal or a roundabout. There's a lot of movements there that are conflicting and could benefit from traffic control. We know that there needs to be some sort of other access, which is the blue circle on Highway 5 to this new development area, but exactly how that looks or how the streets connect or what that access looks like, is it full access, does it have, what that looks like is to be determined as this area develops in the future. So we're just kind of highlighting that so that it can be picked up when your development plans are a little bit more in place and finalize those details. And then finally, this was something, it does have a little bit more detail at the intersection. If before Highway 5 is expanded to 4 lanes, there needs to be an improvement at this intersection. Here's something you could do relatively low cost. And I know there was a funding application for this. I don't think it was successful this go around, but again, partnering with MnDOT to get some sort of lower cost improvement in here could benefit it for many years. And we're just showing that with a driveway realignment and traffic signal, adding striping for pedestrian crossings. It's just kind of, again, documenting that could be something that could move forward sooner than later.
Angie, with that temporary light that's in place right now for the detour on Highway 7, have you had a chance to observe any of the traffic patterns? It seems like it's backing up a long way with that temporary light. I'm just curious.
I haven't specifically, and so I'm kind of deferring to Kara if she's noticed that too. But I think, when there is a detour in place, it changes patterns across the board. And so what you're seeing out there today might not be a normal, it might not be the signal. It's just that there's so much more traffic because of the detour that it's throwing it off. Our modeling has shown a signal can work pretty well here, but I don't know if you have any more to add on that, Kara.
No, it's the Highway 7 being closed is causing all the traffic to reroute to 5. That's where the detour is. So, and at the onset of the project, the Narrows Bridge was still closed. So 2 sets of projects were detouring onto 5, but MnDOT is monitoring it pretty closely.
Okay. It's a nice bridge on the Narrows. I just went through there, so it's good that that's open.
So can we just keep that temporary light there until we get things figured out?
Yeah, I think it is temporary.
I should note that Diane Langenbach from MnDOT wasn't able to join us in person tonight, but she is watching from home, so is hearing the discussion. So
Okay, good.
Okay, so just a broad level zoom out look of this whole area of Highway 5 West. We certainly don't have this all figured out yet. We're not done with the study, but based on the input we've been collecting and some of where we think we're heading is what's shown on this graphic. So I'll maybe start on the east side. So Rolling Acres Road, we know that's a signal. It's been recommended to be improved as a signal. I didn't mention, because it really wasn't in one of the graphics, but we also have been planning for another pedestrian underpass between Rolling Acres Road and Park Drive as a way to get people across Highway 5 in this area. So that's shown on the graphic. And then showing, there seems to be there's some lining up of support for a Park Drive, Cochia Lane signal with a right in, right out at 78th and Steiger. But, the orange star there is saying there probably should be some sort of additional pedestrian crossing, but, let's figure that out, or that can be figured out in preliminary design. 4 lanes on Highway 5 all the way through this area with a traffic signal with not adding that right turn lane at County Road 11 here in downtown. But needing to kind of investigate further again, is it the Rose Street connection or is it the part, the U-turn? Your comments here tonight are helping. I'm bringing this all back to the project team as they look to firm up recommendations and then go share that publicly again and see, did we miss the mark or is this seeming to make sense with people? And then that blue area is just showing to be figured out in the future is what happens with the development and expansion of downtown and those intersections and future street connections in that area. So we will be having a final open house or public engagement of some sort later this fall, like probably November timeframe, where we would share information like this.
Just a comment, there's quite a few cars that come into the holiday station from the west, off of 5. And if the option to extend Rose Street is the preferred option, there'll be a lot of cars coming around that corner that we don't have a right turn lane in, because, so your numbers should reflect the fact that if we go with the Rose Street option, there's gonna be a lot of cars that are going around that corner that aren't going there today.
So I believe they would still be able to use the driveway. I'm gonna go back, here we go. So Holiday would still, it's not very clear in this graphic, but they would still have a driveway on Highway 5, or they could use the access there at Rose Street to get in. So they wouldn't necessarily have to go, if they were heading west on Highway 5, they wouldn't have to come all the way around the block. It would only be if they were heading east.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, or I'm sorry, I said that backwards. If they were heading west.
East of there.
Yes.
They'd have to come around and turn in front of Churchill's and go around.
Nope, they would be able to use,
The driveway would still be there if they're headed east.
or Rose Street would be there. That would be they could get east, and they take a right on Rose Street and
Come
into
in.
Holiday.
Okay.
Yep.
I see.
And right there, where the arrow.
Yeah, I think that's probably to be determined if they need that driveway, or if Rose Street's enough. I think MnDOT prefers to have less access on the highways just for safety. And if Rose Street is open, they would probably use that as their main entrance.
But they still need an entrance for the church house.
Right, yeah, there would probably be at least one driveway in there, you're right. And I think it's shown, it's just
Yeah.
hard to see.
So it would be on either side of the gas station, just like it is now.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it would be the westbound that would be affected by having to go around the block. Okay. How are you feeling about time? I know we have some other information to go over, but I know I
Dana,
used
how much
up.
time do you need to cover your portion?
I think we can get through in a half an hour.
Okay, we'll give you another 10 minutes. and
Okay, I'll talk fast.
Plow through.
This is really meant to be an update. You have seen the Rolling Acres Road improvement ideas that we shared last time. So I'm really here tonight just to share what we've heard from the neighborhood and what we've heard from the general public on those different options. We've done a lot of engagement. That's on your screen. Again, we heard a lot about the concerns of this neighborhood, of speeds and aggressive driving and safety. How do we, for driving and walking and getting across. And then we've done a lot between March and July with the neighborhood itself, just because we were scheduled to have a neighborhood meeting with them, and then the pandemic hit. And so we've done surveys directly to the neighborhood, and we've had virtual meetings with the neighborhood, and we've had public open houses that the neighborhood was also invited. And you can see by the numbers, we have had great participation in all of these. Even since March, 175 people weighing in on Rolling Acres Road. And then a lower amount at our July open house, but again, it was the same material. So most of them had already seen all of it. So we showed and asked for input on, here's what it is today, and our two different options with the 2-lane divided and the 3-lane undivided. And I just wanted to share pretty specifically, because since we do have information on how the neighborhood is feeling about it versus the general public, because it's a county road, it's a minor arterial, it does serve kind of dual purposes for neighborhood and commuters. And we're really getting mixed feedback. I mean, if the takeaway, if I had to say it in one sentence, is that there's definitely disagreement among what is the right solution here. Is it a 2-lane divided that has a median down it, or is it something, that takes up a little bit more space? So there's some property impacts. We're not buying homes, but there's some property impacts there. But you get better traffic calming with that, just slowing people down, kind of working towards some of those things we heard from the neighborhood. versus a 3-lane, which can also achieve a lot of those same goals, but we might not see as much of the traffic calming benefit. It uses a smaller footprint. So there's trade-offs on all sides of this. What we heard mostly from the residents is on the left side of your screen there, the virtual neighborhood meeting. We had 74 of the 116 people that responded self-identified as a resident or property owner. So, the majority of those, and we were seeing, it's pretty close, but a majority of them were liking the 2-lane divided. Now, I'm going to add some caveats to that as we go through the next slides, but that was some of our initial feedback. When we took it out to a public open house, we were very much mixed and split, kind of right down the middle of liking the 2-lane divided versus liking the 3-lane. And in that open house, 12 of those 23 were also residents or property owners, so about 50%. On the side of the screen, you can kind of see what the takeaways, the likes and the dislikes we were hearing from people. And I mentioned some of these already. With the 2-lane divided, they liked the traffic calming. They felt that there was some pedestrian and bicyclist safety concern, or benefits. But they were concerned about private property impacts and reduced access. There was only certain intersections that were fully open and others had to take a right and, some circuity. Versus the 3-lane, it did have probably a lower cost because it's a smaller footprint. They latched onto that and they liked more access. So that was sort of the pluses they were seeing with that. Versus some of their concerns are, is it going to slow people down? And are they going to improperly use that turn lane? I think we've heard many instances of people kind of going around aggressively and using turn lanes where they shouldn't as a through lane. And so would this kind of fuel that was some of the concerns we heard. So we're not done with this corridor. I think some of the ideas that the team has talked about is, do we look at some sort of combination or some sort of hybrid concept where maybe you have a 2-lane divided for a portion of the corridor, like maybe that southern portion up to Interlochen, which is where the church is, and then do something different on the north side. That's where we have some more direct property access, some bigger lot driveways that are, they would be more impacted by a median. So, could we do something different on the northern half compared to the southern, or flip-flop? I think those are the things that we're kind of still wrestling with, is how do we best address the needs that are out there today and for the future. There does seem to be some agreement or support around a future roundabout at Highway 7 and Rolling Acres Road. That's shown on the top of the screen here. There does seem to be, at Interlochen, where we had showed a side street stop or a roundabout, there was a lot of support for a roundabout, with traffic calming. So we're kind of still trying to identify what should be the right improvement there. It kind of depends how we piece this together. There was a lot of support for a trail grade separation of the regional trail. So either underpass or overpass versus keeping it at grade. So I think that, where we're at is we're still working through should we draw something different? Should we leave a couple options on the table for the future? How do we go back to the neighborhood and try to find out what they would prefer, or what they like from these maybe hybrid options? I think there's still a lot we can do here, either figure out in this study or depending on when this road needs to be reconstructed, leave maybe a couple options on the table so that they get picked up in preliminary design and kind of revisit it if that's going to be many years out in the future yet. So I think we're trying to figure out what can we solve now and what can we leave flexible for the future that people can support.
So what are we talking about doing something? Are you still studying?
So that's our next step in this. We will wrap up our study by the end of this year. So we're in September, we'll be done by December with recommendations and an implementation plan, which will look at all of these things. Where's your best bang for your buck for operational needs or safety needs and pavement needs. How do these things all align, considering all of those corridors that I showed on that first map? What needs to come first, second, third? Because it is important to understand when is it scheduled to be reconstructed versus what could you do now, or is it a better bang to wait and do it all at once? That is our next step of putting it together. First, we're trying to figure out what is it, and then put the pieces together. So this one, I think we're still doing a little bit of figuring out what is it, but we'll get the pieces put together before the end of the year.
And then you come to us and then we decide, and it's,
So,
what do we get done?
so then from that point, it will identify, what needs to be improved and what the responsibilities are. This is a county road. It involves the city of Victoria, so working together on what the funding share of that is, what the timing is. Yeah, there's a lot more to be figured out once you figure out when you're going to build it and what it's going to be built.
Okay, because we get regular letters from the residents about the traffic and the noise.
So as they're developing the implementation plan, we'll be weighing in on that in terms of what the city of Victoria thinks the prioritization of these roads should be. Historically, this council has said that, or previous councils, they all blend together, but that 82nd Street, the improvement of 82nd Street from Victoria to Chaska and Chanhassen was a top priority. Certainly, I'm hearing from these residents from Rolling Acres Road as much as you are about this being a top priority. We do have the funding application in for Highway 5 from Minnewaska back through the Rolling Acres Road intersection that we should know something this fall about whether or not that's potentially getting funded. So that's the pieces we have to try to fit together in the rest of this
So we have to
study
figure out
process.
where we're getting the funds from as well.
Yeah, that we don't have funding for all of these corridors.
It's that again.
Right, obviously funding is gonna be a huge factor in all of these. Best case scenario, what I have heard is if we do get that grant from Minnewaska to Rolling Acres Road, that still leaves a bottleneck at the Arboretum, and that's gonna be a 2-lane traffic. Currently, there's 27,000 cars a day on Highway 5, which is twice the capacity of Highway 5. The only way we're going to take any cars off of Highway 5, none of these things that we talked about today are not going to take any cars off of Highway 5. The only one that can do that is 82nd Street. And I feel like Victoria has done their part. This is, my soapbox. We rather than have the county build a $10 million Marsh Lake Road, we decided to build it ourselves because we thought that was a better use of county tax dollars. And that $10 million could be better spent on 82nd Street. We signed on to the half-cent sales tax. I feel like Victoria has done their part. And I really hope that the county gets the message that it's time to step forward and do right by the residents of Victoria. As I mentioned before, the school district decided they're going to sell their land. One of the top reasons they decided to sell that was because of the bottlenecks on Highway 5. It's terrible. Our residents are sitting in traffic jams going to and from work each and every day. The only thing that's going to take traffic off of Highway 5 is 82nd Street. And we've got our kids, our 16-year-olds are using that as a shortcut to get back and forth to high school. Our most inexperienced drivers are using that road. I just think that that's not acceptable.
Here.
That's my soapbox. Thank you.
Exactly.
Move over. We're all going to be on that box.
I think we're all on the same train.
Yeah.
Anything else here from Angie? Staff, do you need anything from us?
No, very helpful.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. It's been a great update. So
Yes,
you
thank
very
you.
much.
And I would be back towards the end of the year with that plan and those priorities where you can definitely weigh in on that.
Terrific. We look forward to that.
Yep.
Thank you. Dana, let's talk about the facility space needs.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor and members of the council. As we queue up our next presenters, Wold's here with us tonight. I'll just quickly move us through a recap, so we can spend most of our time talking about things we want feedback from you all on. But what we're going to be talking about here tonight are City Hall space modifications. We talked about this at our July 27th workshop, as well as our August 24th budget workshops. So now what we're going to be looking from you tonight is authorization for us to move forward with the project, and to authorize staff to work with Wold to finalize the construction documents and to get those quotes for bids out so we can begin work utilizing the CARES Act funds with a short period of time remaining. So if I don't have a clicker, but if we can draw your attention to that first slide, thank you. Just real briefly, what we're looking at here with the CARES Act funds are some very stringent criteria for expenditures. The expenditure has to be due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and we've talked about that at great length in previous meetings, but I'd be happy to answer any questions about any of the things that Melissa from Wold will be covering tonight and how that directly relates. Although I feel like we did spend some time on that previously, but happy to answer questions. That the costs were not accounted for in our most recent budget. So these couldn't be expenditures that we planned to do, projects that we planned, expenses that we had planned. So not in the budget. And then we must take delivery, or the performance has to fall between March 1st and November 15th. So some of the changes that we're going to be talking about here tonight are changes to the physical space. And what that means is we're doing construction, and so it's a very, very aggressive timeline, which is why we're looking for that authorization to move forward. We would finalize all the documents and then bring back to council at your next council meeting on the 28th, the actual signing off of the project, and we would begin the work the next day. The other complicating factor on this is that we do hold elections in this room, and this is one of the rooms that will be reconfigured to accommodate social or physical distancing for council members and the advisory board commissions, and serve as a training and conference room to accommodate larger groups of people. And so we need to be out of here before the election so our city clerk can get all set up and get ready for that. So it's a very aggressive timeline. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I'll just pass it right over to Melissa to dive into the details.
Council, questions?
None right now.
Perfect.
Right now, I just have a question. If you give us a real good explanation of what's happening, can't we just approve this tonight and give it 2 more weeks to get going?
Well, and
I mean, it
that's,
sounds like you're on a suicide schedule. So, I mean,
if you're feeling comfortable.
The idea that we would wait 2 weeks just to tinker with this thing is insane, you know?
Madam Acting Mayor, Councilmember Gold, members of the council, you could administratively give me the authority and then on the back end tidy everything up at a future meeting. So
I'm on board with that thought.
Everybody in? Perfect. Melissa, introduce yourself and let's hear what you've got to say.
Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Stein with Wold Architects and Engineers. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to you guys about the City Hall improvements. Go to our first. So there's 2 main things that we do want to talk to you, or that I want to talk to you today about. The first one is kind of the City Hall improvements, or sorry, the first one would be the furniture, and then the second one is kind of the improvements to the City Hall as well. So as you know, with the COVID pandemic, there's a lot of changes that need to, there are a lot of changes that need to be taken in consideration to really make sure that we're doing the wellness and safety for the staff of the City Hall here. So as you can see in the plan, we have a couple different bubble diagrams. The bubbles really represent some of the furnishings in the areas that we are planning to touch. So the first one, which was blue and green, would be the council chambers. So as Dana had indicated, we are planning to kind of reconfigure the council chambers dais to provide social distancing for the council members yourself, but then also for the planning commissions that would be sitting at this area as well. And then when we get into the furniture piece, we'll show you how it can be reconfigured to act as a training area and conference room to hold some of those larger groups at as a safe social distancing space. Next to that is a conference room, and so as you look at this space here, we are planning to kind of reconfigure this back corner. Again, as we look at how the public is using the city hall, we wanted to make sure that we were taking people that maybe would be gathering at the front lobby counter and give them adequate space to be able to meet with city employees safely in another space. And so we are providing access to a conference room, the small conference room that is back in this corner of City Hall, but then also opening this up for two reasons. One, to provide a little bit more flexibility for the council chambers here. So as people are waiting to present, they can kind of wait in a safe space, make sure that we're providing enough adequate safe distance for the public that want to come in here and be part of the presentations and the meetings. And then also provide another area for public to meet with staff in another safe area, again, as we're trying to keep social distancing and keep people away from kind of the front counter. One of the other things that we are planning to do is provide more room for the break room space. So the break room space right now, only one person can really be in that safely at a time. So being able to open that up to the conference room and the council chambers here, it gives more space for employees to be able to eat, to be able to prepare their food in a safe manner while they're all trying to utilize it relatively around the same time. And so the bottom are just a couple pictures of the island that we're proposing in there. Again, one of the things is providing safe, durable surfaces that are cleanable and that don't attract or don't hold any bacteria on them. And so we're planning to redo the counters in there, and then again provide a kind of an island that provides more counter space. So as people are working, they can work at a safe distance in the same space together. The next piece is the lobby itself. One of the things that we are planning to do here is provide some glass that will be a kind of a separation between the public and the individuals, the staff individuals at that counter. So as you can see right now, we are planning on putting some glass there. It will still provide the ability for public to be able to use the counter to write if they have to sign a form or something, and still be able to provide and pass packages through safely. But then it also, we are planning to change the kind of the city of, or the city desk to something that actually represents the city of Victoria a little better as well. If there aren't any questions about the upgrade itself, we can kind of move on to the furniture. Yes.
I just had a question about the council chambers
Absolutely.
with the positioning of the dais.
Sure.
It's going to go like this. Is that my understanding?
Correct. Yep. So it'll shift 90 degrees this way. Yep.
Did you consider angling it this way? From like, so this is the center in the corner and then comes out that way?
You know, we didn't look at that angle or that orientation specifically. What we did is we were trying to provide the most flexibility for the council members, but then also the staff, and then the public coming in and utilizing the space and providing safe distance and exits out for everybody. We definitely could look at that other option and kind of rotating it.
I would like that because to me, because of the way the door comes in, having the mayor here and having it space out that way, to me would be more aesthetically and feng shui and all that kind of stuff. Plus, accessing from the doorway each way.
Sure.
It would open it up more, in my opinion.
Okay.
It looks like you could keep the same size that they have drawn here, but that would also incorporate that extra overflow and include them into the meeting a little bit more, right? They would be more included. Right now, they're kind of off to the side for the overflow. Dana's go.
Pick me. Thank you. I just, sitting from where I'm looking at today, part of what what we're trying to figure out is our AV needs to change too. So we're trying to not move our cameras as much. So we'll have to look at what that does to our camera placement. By shifting 90 degrees, we only have to add one camera. We can maintain the rest of our cameras in place. So order of magnitude by leaving those in place and doing some of the other upgrades that we need to do to make this room function for broadcasting is about $30,000. So we'll want to just make sure that the AV can accommodate where the placement of that is. And then also from a camera perspective, because we're broadcast, if you're in the middle, your focal point is going to be the exit door and the exit sign, as opposed to something different. Now that might be okay, but I just want to draw your attention to, like, behind you, you have a big wall. You'll have a nice center wall because the wing wall will come out. So it might look a bit nicer when you're when the public, they're not looking at a bright exit sign. That's
We can put a screen up and
so we'll look at it, but there's just a couple of things that we'll want to work through on the aesthetic piece as well.
And then on the conference room back here, is that going to have a window? Is it going to be open or is it going to be closed?
Yeah, so the plan, I apologize for not explaining it. Yes, so the thought is it would be a glass sliding door. So you'd be able to look, they'll be able to look in. They can close it or they can keep it open. And then when, if there isn't a meeting going on here, they can close it off. So that can be its own conference room and this could be its own conference room.
okay, thanks.
So one of the other things that we are looking at to change, to again provide more wellness, more separation, is our furniture as well. So as our council chamber room here, we are planning on providing some training room tables, chairs. Again, as we look at the setup that we have and kind of reconfiguring it, we want to make sure. Sorry, this would be a better image for you. Sorry about that. We want to make sure that everything is durable, flexible, cleanable, that we are providing enough ability to be mobile and so that they can have enough chairs to provide the social distancing in the council chambers, but also for the work sessions as well. So the thought is that we could configure it into a U. That's what's shown right now if you would want to do that for work sessions, so you don't have to sit at the council dais to have those. That way you can have a more intimate conversation. Right next to it, the conference room right next to it would be a similar setup. We're planning to sit 12 in that conference room. Again, as we think through flexibility, we're going to utilize some of the chairs and the tables that are being shown for the training room here in the council chambers to be utilized there. So again, looking at flexibility, providing some more space for larger groups, but smaller groups, and making sure that it's flexible for the city's needs.
Is that after COVID? Because we have to be 6 feet apart. You're going to be able to get 12 in there 6 feet apart?
Nope, you won't. So this would definitely be after COVID, yes. Yep, but you would be able to bring the half semicircle in there to provide more room that provides more separation for people at the conference room.
Okay.
Yep. So the image on the far left is that conference room table that would be shown in there. The back portion would be in there all the time. It can sit 8 non-COVID related, but then it also is large enough to provide more, like I said, more seating. The image right next to it would be for the smaller conference room that we're going to add a door into off of the lobby. Again, it's going to act as kind of an extension of the front counter, kind of a touchdown space. So as we're trying to not have a bottleneck of people at the front desk, we can move them to other spaces safely and have conversations at a safe distance apart. And then the 2 chairs with kind of the tables next to it, the thought is that those are going to actually be placed in the lobby itself. Again, as we're trying to find and relocate people from the front counter, we can have one-on-one conversations with a staff member and someone from the public in the lobby still, not in a conference room, just kind of in the corner. So those will be placed actually in this far back corner here.
Is that the way the chairs are going to look, or is that just?
It is, yep. So they're higher backs to, again, provide a little bit of privacy, so it's not like you're talking to the world. So it does have a higher back, but it provides some semi-privacy for a conversation with another individual there. And all of the fabrics are cleanable, wipeable. When we do have fabrics, we are planning on having a lot of poly or plastic materials, again, to provide more cleanable surfaces that can be wiped down, bleached down, to provide, yeah. Hopefully it's not the same plastic. No. As we move into kind of the office space itself, to provide more separation, as we're getting more mobile, one of the things is to provide other spaces for people to work. Again, that provides more separation and more social distancing between people as they're working individually on things. We are reconfiguring the work stations to provide some more collaboration areas to provide that additional work spaces. So a few of the areas, the one on the right, the top right-hand corner will be a kind of a collaboration, again, provides for social distancing as multiple people can use that counter space safely and have a teaming collaboration. They can work on something, plan reviews, but still be safe. The booth, and so the left lower image is a booth on one side, again, as we're trying to provide people safe spaces out of the break room, as it's quite small. This provides another amenity and another space for them to be able to, again, meet collaboratively with a safe distance apart, or have a separate area to do their, have their lunch or take a break that's not in the break room. And then the table that's in that same image, again, it provides another collaboration space out of the workstations for people to work. And then the image to the top left corner, it's a single chair. There is a small little nook that's currently exists. What we are planning to do is add a wall and a door there. It's going to be a wellness room. So as if someone does fall ill when they are here and can't get home right away, it's a space for them to go. There's a back stair and a door out. So as we're trying to just, keep someone, for some reason, if they can't go home right away, it's a space to keep them in a safe environment and keep others safe. But while that's not being used for that, it also provides another quiet space for people to go make a phone call, step away from their desk real quick. Again, as we think of wellness, sometimes de-stressing or just taking a moment to collect your thoughts or your breaths needs to happen. And so that's a space for that. And then we also are, again, providing, as we look at social distancing, there's not a lot of meeting spaces, and so meetings in the offices do happen. And so as we look at the reconfiguration, providing more staffing spaces in the offices itself to provide that social distancing for the individual working in there, but also for staff who might be coming in to have conversations, one-on-ones, or sometimes there could be up to two or three, in those offices. Any questions on furniture? I know I ran through that pretty quickly, and but if you do,
The furniture is fabric?
not all of it. Nope. Some are fabric. And when they are fabric, it's kind of like a vinyl. So again, as we look at the cleanability of it, we are trying to have durable and more poly products throughout the city hall.
Does this replace all the furniture we currently have?
Yes?
No.
Oh, okay. I was going to say almost all of it. A good portion.
A good portion of it. So, if I can draw your attention to like the back tables, you can see, these tables are not super, and I don't know if ours is doing it, but
This one has
this one
brace
has a
on it.
brace.
Yep.
But we have big sags, and a lot of our furniture just is not going to withstand the test of time. And then with other things, if it's not going to stay here at City Hall, it will go to the Public Works, it will go to the water treatment, it will go to the Park and Rec, it will go out to the recreation, because there's older furniture in those areas, And so this will allow us to repurpose with something that's nicer. But some of the things that where the quality is, we'll try to get as much wear as we can out of it, but some of it it's just not going to work.
Some of the furniture that you showed us has the same type of design, so are we going to, in 5 years, have sagging back furniture as well, or is it a certain type, or is it kind of bracing?
That is a great question, and it is actually one that got asked a couple times every time we've shown different products. It does have a brace underneath it that kind of runs the middle. As you can see on the table that Dave and Dane is on, there is like a metal brace there that was put by, I think, a city employee to stabilize that. And so all of the tables that we do have shown do have a metal support brace in the middle of them to help prevent that from happening.
It does look kind of flimsy, though. I mean, what's the life of this stuff?
They do have, besides some of the power or manual things that change, it does have a lifetime warranty on the products. Fabrics have obviously a different warranty based on what fabric they are. But so most of the furniture does have a lifetime warranty.
But that means if it lasts 6 years, you don't get full replacement value. You get some mathematical calculation value. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so the real question is, what's the life of this furniture? So, is it 10 years, 5 years?
I have
Unknown?
seen, so we are partnering with Hendrickson. They use an all steel product. Most of the stuff you've seen is all steel. I have seen all steel in a building that's 15, 20 years old, and it looks pretty good. Obviously, it has some wear and tear because of its age and depending on where it is. But I've seen it in very good condition in 10, 20 years. I'm not saying all of it's going to last 20 years, but I have seen some pieces that have been. A majority of their stuff does last at least 10 years in good quality condition still.
Council, other questions? Terrific. So Dana, lead us through how we can authorize you to get started with this work.
Should we?
Yeah,
run through
sorry.
the timeline, acting Madam Mayor
Yes.
McMillan and members of the council, just before we have you give us direction, we just want to make sure everybody's aware of the timelines.
Yep.
And with that, we're looking at potentially canceling the October 12th meeting so we can be in here working all the way through. And so right now, as it stands, there isn't anything scheduled for that day. So, but if something happens, if something needs to happen, we'll probably have to meet virtually, so we can be in here. But on that note, I'll have Melissa just quickly walk us through the timeline, and then we'll walk through the direction that we need.
Yep. So for the City Hall upgrades, we are currently in the process of finalizing our documents. We will be sending those out to contractors who we've already contacted. They already know the projects are coming and to be looking for kind of the documents so that we can get quotes. So we'll be finishing that today, and we will be getting those quotes as you guys have already kind of verbally approved. We won't come back on the September 28th for approval. We'll kind of just keep going so we can get as much time as possible from the construction standpoint. And then obviously construction will start a little sooner than that October 1st that I haven't indicated on there. With the furniture, we basically are almost done. There's some, T's that need to be crossed and some I's that need to be dotted to finalize the official PO for that. We will be getting that at the end of this week, and we are tentatively scheduled for install and delivery November 9th, the week of November 9th.
And the other thing that I would add to that, what we didn't talk about tonight, but which will be part of this process, is coordinating the AV changes as well as the HVAC changes, which we talked about at our August 24th. So while walls are being taken apart, we will make sure that we're coordinating those efforts. And so that'll all be one hopefully well orchestrated project. And then with that, Dave will have somebody from his team be dedicated to coordinating all the different efforts and the pieces and staying on top of things and shepherding the process through and working very closely with Melissa and her team on everything. So,
And I trust city staff is going to be in and out working from home doing the best they can while we are under construction while we're
So, yeah,
terribly
we still
disrupted?
have, our staff are still rotating, working remotely, so that should be seamless. We will have at least one person here to serve the public, during the process, so we envision, staying open, although it might be noisy at times, so, and I think that while construction's happening here, we're staging it so it will happen in phases. And so while construction is taking place in here in the conference room, staff can be working in the other area. We still have one small conference room to meet with residents, applicants, et cetera. So. And then with that, well, we'll come back to you. We wanted to talk about, we still talked about the fire station, the decontamination needs, and then in the public works area, the shared office area and break room having some less than adequate space for this. But we just, with the order of magnitude, we just didn't have enough funds and enough time to do the analysis that we needed for the CARES Act fund piece. So we will be bringing that back to you, as we noted on our last workshop on August 24th, that we will bring those components back to you as part of the space needs study, and we'll look at that through the lens of the short, midterm, and long-term facilities plan. And then in terms of, I think that brings us to, you've seen these, yep. Just what we need. So we'd be looking, we can just kind of do a general consensus, unless Cindy's looking for, do you think we need to take an official vote? It's a workshop, so I feel like just a general consensus might be okay. So we can just kind of do it in one thing, unless you want to peel something off, but we'd be looking for authorization for us to move forward with the projects as we discussed here, along with the HVAC, which we did not discuss in detail, but order of magnitude, $118,000, also funded through CARES Fund. And then the AV, we're looking at about $30,000, unless we end up shifting here and we have to, that may impact that. But order of magnitude, that's about the same. Budget-wise, the furniture is coming in at about $130,000, and the City Hall changes somewhere between about $150,000, $170,000 range for all the things that we've discussed here tonight. So, well, our furniture actually came in well under what we anticipated. So, so we'd be looking for authorization of the project, and then having us staff work with Wold to finalize the construction documents, seek those quotes, and then as you discussed if you're comfortable when we talked initially this evening, if you wanted to give me administrative authority to sign, and then we would just bring it back to you on the back end, we could do that.
Okay. Council, is that agreeable to the council?
No objection.
No objections whatsoever.
All right, carry on.
Thank you very much for your support, and we've got a great team with Wold, and I think a great team that's really spent a lot of time focusing in the short time that we've had to make sure that these solutions will not only work for the COVID pandemic, but any future issues, and will help us achieve those incremental steps towards our long-term, short-term, long-term, midterm goals. The one thing I will say too is in doing this that I've totally lost my train of thought. We will not have to, the changes that we're making here with furniture and space buys us 10 years up here, given the current staff and growth projections, without needing to look for a different place or a different space for the library. So this will help us achieve our space needs in up to the midterm.
Yep.
So
Good positive stuff. All right, without a... Cindy, I'm sorry.
I just have a question now. You had talked about not coming back for September 28th, so does this change anything, or you still need that time anyway? Like, are we going to cancel the 28th meeting, or will that still?
Well, we still have a lot of things on the 28th meeting, so I think we would just be looking at, for clarification, after the 28th meeting, we hopefully would be ready to we would meet in here, and then the next day, in an ideal world, we would be starting with either AV, HVAC, or the
So
construction process.
you're not picking up any time, basically.
Well, we still have to finish our documents a little bit, which we'll be doing this week. Like I said, we've already been in contact with contractors, but they also need some time to get us quotes. The 28th kind of was a good timing for that. It's not like we were holding on to anything to meet that 28th timeframe to come back to you. But again, if we do get quotes sooner, we could start sooner than the 28th. I just want to make sure our contractors are giving us adequate pricing and having time to be able to do that.
And if we have something to bring back to sign, we will add it. We just, without delaying then, or scheduling a special meeting. Thank you for your support on that. But if we have everything, we will certainly bring it back for the 28th.
All right. Without objection, then we will adjourn by acclamation, and we will reconvene for the council meeting shortly.